Greetings and welcome to the latest installment of the Senturus Knowledge Series. Today we're pleased to be presenting to you on the topic of Power BI, data cleansing, and Power Query Editor. Today's agenda, we'll do some quick introductions and then get into the meat of the presentation, discussing the importance of clean data, leveraging Power Query Editor. Patrick will show you some great demos, and then stick around for the Q&A at the end after we do a quick Senturus overview for those of you who may not be familiar with our offerings, and some great additional free resources. By way of introductions, I'm pleased to be joined by my colleague today, Patrick Powers. Patrick has 20 years of experience in business intelligence and data analytics. He's a Tableau certified associate and a Cognos expert whose product experience goes back to version 6. He is also versed in Actuate, Hyperion, Business Objects, and his certifications include multiple programming languages such as Java and C++, and database certification in MS SQL. My name is Mike Weinhauer. I'm a director here at Senturus, and among my different roles, I have the pleasure of hosting our Knowledge Series events. Now, before we get, last slide here, before we get into the presentation, we have a quick poll here that I've launched for you that simply asks, how are you cleansing and transforming your data currently? So it's just a single selection. Are you using a conventional ETL tool like SSIS, Azure Data Factory, or Informatica? Are you using a more self-service type tool such as Power Query Editor, Alteryx, Trifacta, or are you using good old Excel? Or are you doing it with a programming language like Python? Or are you doing something else? Or are you not doing it? So the 43% using a conventional tool, another quarter, a little more using a self-service tool, only 10% using Excel. I thought that number would be higher, frankly. So I guess that should be reassuring. A lot of you doing something else. So I'm going to guess that's probably more none than other. But anyway, that's helpful insight. So thank you for sharing your experience with us. And I'm going to hide this and I'll hand the floor over to Patrick. Patrick, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Hello, everybody. So today we're going to talk about data preparation, data cleansing, why it's so important, what do you need for it, et cetera, et cetera. Before I start that, though, I want to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day. And a quick reminder that St. Patrick was English, not Irish, and those snakes that he drove out were actually druids. But hey, you know, hopefully everybody's having a wonderful day. And since we're on the topic of St. Patrick's Day, which traditionally has food associated with it, let's talk about preparing data like we prepare a meal. It's a very similar type thing, isn't it? You don't just magically get a meal in front of you. You have to go ahead and you have to prepare it. You have to prep it, because when you prep your data, you end up with a nice, lovely meal at the end, and you're happy, and everybody's happy, and the whole world is happy because you get to eat. Oh, it's 2 o'clock where I am. I'm already thinking about eating. Data is the same thing. No matter what tool you have, whether this is Power BI, whether it's Cognos, whether it's Tableau, whether it's whatever, a homegrown tool, garbage in, garbage out. The more time spent on prepping, the better the results are going to be. And when you take something like a Power BI, which for a lot of folks is really driven by the import of Excel, the import of local files, the import of extracts, that data cleansing becomes even more important, doesn't it? And we're going to look today at a specific Excel file, and that you're all going to recognize as, you need to report on this. Well, how the heck am I supposed to report on this? And that's where it comes to good data versus bad data, data that's accurate, data that's up to date, data that's informational. All of these things are important because we've got to give output. Remember, at the end of the day, the whole reason We don't do these things because we like making visualizations. We don't do these things because it's fun and neat. I mean, it is, but the reason that we do these visualizations, these dashboards, these reports is to be able to make business decisions and take action from that data. Well, if you've got bad data, how are you going to take action? How are you going to make good business decisions, right? So we need to make sure that our data is getting us to that point. Data that is in the right format. First off, we need data we can use. Just because we have a database sitting out on the warehouse floor from 1974 doesn't mean we can use it and report on it. And that leads us to data from multiple sources. There are some folks out there who have some wonderful, wonderful transactional systems. But those transactional systems don't have all the data we need, do they? Transactional systems have great actuals. They have perfect stuff. But then we also need that spreadsheet from Donna and finance, because we've got to do a budget versus forecast versus actuals report. And oh, wait, those are at 3 different granularity levels, because the warehouse keeps track of everything at the weekly level. Sales is tracking everything at the daily level, and forecast is being done at the quarterly level. Oops, how are we supposed to deal with that? How are we supposed to work with data that's at these different granular levels if we haven't done some kind of cleansing to it, if we haven't created roll-ups, if we haven't built aggregates? And then you got data that straight up is not analysis friendly. And that's what we're going to work with today. We're going to work with one that is just not analysis friendly. And you're saying, hey, we've spent a lot of time making a great data warehouse. We've done this and everything's great. Well, you know what? There's still human intervention. There's still human error. And then even when you take things like slowly changing dimensions, you take SCDs and things like that into consideration, you're going to have outliers. The one company that you knew for 20 years that was named X is now named Y, and you can't figure out why the data isn't lining up. All of these things happen, and they happen to everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, how big you are. It happens to everybody. So we need to clean our data. Power BI gives us a solution that's built in. If you've came to the Tableau version of this class, because this is a generic topic in some respects, there's is another tool. Here we've got something built in. It's right there at our fingertips. We don't have to go to another tool. We don't have to buy another license. We don't have to install anything else. It's there. There's literally nothing stopping you from clicking on one button to get to what you need. Okay? It's right there. In addition to that, in addition to some of the stuff we're going to see today, one of the biggest advantages of using Power Query Editor, hereby referred to as PQE because I'm lazy and don't want to say all those words, it's the ability to leverage M. A lot of folks who use Power BI come to this from a technical background. They come from a SQL background. They come from a programming background, and they're used to writing code. That may be you. You may be sitting there nodding your head right now going, yeah, just let me write my SQL. Okay, well, how about I let you write M instead? And M allows you to create some really, really nice, complex, advanced scripts. One of the things I'm going to show you today is leveraging M to build a date dimension. I would wager that out of the 102 of you that are on here right now, at least 50 of you can sit here and nod your head when I say, man, I wish we had a better date dimension. So let's write one. Let's use M and let's write one. So all of this functionality, the ability to do basic stuff, is also supplemented for those of you who are more technical, more programmatic, by allowing us to use things like M. Okay. Are we all excited now? Everybody excited to see this? Woo! As much excitement as we can muster on a Wednesday afternoon. It is Wednesday, right? I don't know. It's March 363rd, so we'll figure it out. But I think look, see, David is there with a big old whoop. Thank you, David, for giving me that excitement. Make me feel like it's always hard when you do these and you feel like you're talking to just the void. So thank you very much, David. I appreciate that. What am I going to show you today? So as I just mentioned, I'm going to show you some basic stuff. I'm going to show you some general cleansing. Just, how do we bring it in? How do we do some simple stuff? How do we get rid of null values? How do we get rid of columns we don't need? Unpivoting data, custom columns, how to merge queries, the kind of stuff that you would have to do, on a regular basis. No matter how good your data is, there's always going to be at least that one file that's going to need some of this type of stuff done, especially when it comes to things like removing null values or merging queries together. That's the kind of stuff that we all tend to need on a regular basis. And then again, I'm going to show you how to work with an M script. I'm going to show you how to bring in some custom written code and use that to create a really nice date table. Okay. All right. Nope, I went back too far. I need to switch to this now. Where am I? There I am. So here I am. I'm in Power BI. I've got this darn GoToMeeting control panel blocking everything. Let's get that out of the way. There we go. And what we want to work with today is an Excel file. Look at this. This is a really decent looking Excel file. Wow, that's pretty impressive. I've got my different manufacturers. I've got my monthly quantities. I've got a spark line and I've got this chart. But how am I supposed to translate this into Power BI? This looks great if you're printing it out and you're putting it on your boss's desk. This looks great if you're putting it up on a screen for a presentation. But come on. We all know that trying to bring this into a BI tool, this is a nightmare, isn't it? Great for what it is, horrible to try and deal with it in a tool. So while this may not look like it needs cleansing, this is a perfect example of not being analysis ready. Okay, so let's clean this up. So here we are. I'm in Power BI. I'm going to go get some data. I'm going to go get this. Everything I'm showing you today comes from either our Power Query Editor class or our DAX and data modeling class, just so you know which classes you might be interested in. This is where we're coming from. So I'm going to go here to the Query Editor. I'm going to open this file, Equipment by Supplier. Uh-oh. Wow, that was fun. I don't know what the heck's going on here. All right. So here I've got a suppliers table, and here I've got that XLS I just showed you. And oh boy, nulls, column 2, 3, 4, nulls. All right, we're going to have to deal with that. So I'm going to bring in both of these. And now I could either load it and attempt to work with it in Power BI, or guess what? I can go straight into Power Query Editor by going to transform data. I'm going to go right in to here. Here it is. Here's the tool. Here's what we're looking at. Let's clean house. So we see that it already applied some steps for us automatically. It went ahead and it tried to promote headers, and it tried to change data types based on what it saw. But we want to go ahead and we want to get rid of those because they're not quite what we want in this case. So I'm going to delete these two steps. Now I'm back to the raw data. I've just got my pure raw data. And we can see that the first two rows are essentially useless. They really are. This was that nice, pretty title, and then a blank line, title, blank line. Let's get rid of them. Before I do that though, one thing that a lot of people don't really notice in Power Query Editor is this little green bar underneath a column. Even if you think your data is clean, you can quickly use this little green bar. This column is only 79% valid. This column is a whopping 27% valid, 14 rows that are valid out of my 52 total. So we got to do some cleansing here. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to make this nice and easy. And again, Power Query Editor makes a lot of these things that are cumbersome in other tools very easy. Oh, look, a button literally to remove rows. Wow, can't ask for anything easier than that, can I? Top rows, bottom rows, alternate rows, duplicates, blanks, errors. I'm going to get rid of top rows. 2. There we go. Get rid of those top 2 rows right out of the gate. They're gone. Let's deal now with the nulls. Now I can do nulls a few different ways. I can use a text filter. I could say does not equals, or I could just use the button again. Okay? Both options will give me the same results typically, and typically there's no difference in performance. They're doing the same thing. I'm lazy. I'll admit it right out of the gate. So you know what I'm going to do? Remove rows, remove blank rows. Boop. Look at that. So we've gone from 52 rows to 46. How do I know that? Well, first off, I can look right down here. And if I want to see the difference, I can go through any of these steps. So here I am at the first navigation step, 52 rows. Remove the top, I'm down to 50. Remove the blank, down to 46. Okay. So right there, I can go ahead and just see how I'm doing. Down to 46, and we walk through each of the step. And I could also get rid of any of these. If I wanted to redo it, if, oh no, this took out too many, I can just delete that step. Okay. Some steps have additional options, the little gear icon there. Some steps are pretty straightforward and just get rid of blank rows. Let's keep going. Let's handle the null values in our first column. Just like Excel. And remember, I want to pause. I forgot to bring this up earlier. So let me pause for a second. This is not something new. And a lot of you probably already know that this is something that is in Excel. So if you're seeing, wow, this reminds me of Excel, yeah, it should, because it's already there. Power Query Editor, Power Pivot, tools like that, where do you think they came from? So yeah, you're going to see a lot of similarities. You're going to see a lot of things that feel the same, things that work the same, because that's where they came from. And one of those is filling down columns. So look at this. We've got all these columns with, or all these rows with nulls in this first column. Okay, let's handle that. So I'm going to click in this cell that says hubs. I'm going to go to my transform tab. Wow, lots of stuff here. And fill down. And it's going to fill down until it hits the next neighboring cell with a value, and then it'll continue to fill down. Nice. One click, one step, done. And oh, look, my column is now 100% valid. And I see that a lot of my columns are now 100% valid. Still not quite where we need it to make it truly analysis ready, but we're doing pretty good here. We're getting a lot closer, aren't we? What we can do next is we can now promote our header. Okay? We can promote our header. So we're going to go back to our home tab. Once again, nice simple button. Use first rows as headers. And I've got a couple choices here. I can use the headers as the first row. I can use first row as headers. There we go. Now that change type step comes back because now it's looking at the data without that first row. Okay, so we see like here, we're going type as text, type as any. This is something you do want to look at when you're working on stuff. Make sure it is identifying columns correctly. It does its best, but sometimes, hey, not always going to get it exactly right. But now I've got a nice header, got my columns going on, and I could pretty much start building visualizations off of this and see how I was doing, or I could clean up some more. You should see I've still got things like total. I've got a repeated header. Let's handle those next. Let's get rid of these total rows and this additional header row. So first, I'm going to get rid of the one that's class. So I'm going to take this one, and I can take any of these, whether I take row 10, row 21, row 37, doesn't matter. I'm going to right-click that. I'm going to do a text filter of does not equal. Gone. That's it. Does not equal class. Gone. We're going to take a look at this in a second, but notice we now have a filtered row step. And we're going to do the same thing for that total row. I can't quite do the total row the same way because I've got mixed total, rural total, urban total. It's not just a single word. So here I'm going to do on the whole column. Okay. I'm going to go click on the right thing. I'm going to click on my filters. I'm going to go to my text filters, and I'm going to say does not contain. Keep rows where class does not contain total. So now it'll get rid of any of those that are total. You may have noticed there, I kind of messed myself up. I right-clicked the column. Look at all the things you can do with a single column. I meant to click originally on the text filters, So wow, I've got all these options for a column, and I've got all these text filters for a column. So a lot going on. Now let's look at those steps. Oh, filtered rows 1. Yeah, well, that's not very informative, is it? Luckily for us, I can rename these. Filtered rows class, rename. Filtered rows total. Much better. Because there's nobody out there who's going to remember what filtered rows and filtered rows was 3 months from now, are you? If you say you would, well, you're a better person than I am. All right, we're down to 37 rows from our original 52. We're down to 37. So we're getting there. We're getting much better. One of the things that it isn't going to interpret was the spark line in the chart in the original report. So if we scroll over, we'll see I've got some extra columns here. Got some extra columns. I don't need column 15, and I don't need that 2014 total. These, again, they're not analysis friendly columns. So we'll remove them. And I can do it by right clicking like I just did, or I could do it from the home ribbon, remove columns, same thing, same end result. Looking good. We're down to 14 columns, 37 rows. We're getting there. Let's look at the date. This is so typical for a lot of folks. You'll end up with a spreadsheet that has the dates broken out, or even worse, when each month is its own tab, and you end up having to do a union in order to get what you need. Here, I've got each month represented as a column. I really want just a single date column. So what we're going to do is we're going to unpivot. Ooh, that sounds fancy. It is. So I'm going to take this January. I'm going to shift click all the way over to December. And I am going to unpivot. So I'm going to right click, unpivot columns. Hey, look at that. Now I've got a single column for the month and a single column for the quantity. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to rename those. I'm going to rename this one month. I'm going to rename this one quantity. Note that that is a single step. It did not give me 2 different steps for the renaming. So if I went back, I could see that I did both renames up here in the code that it created. And it shows me which one was which. Rename those. All right, now that we have a month, we can start to use some of the built-in functionality to create real dates. Dates are just everybody's Achilles heel, aren't they? Luckily for us, Power BI has some really great date capabilities built in, and PQE specifically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a custom column. I'm going to go to the Add Column tab. Look at all these cool things. We can do functions. I can do conditionals. I can add an index. Neat. Well, we're going to do a custom column. Okay, we're going to create a custom column. And I'm going to name this month begin date. Okay. And now I'm going to type. So here we go. Here's some of that code I was talking about before. Date dot from text. Okay, so I'm going to use the date dot from text, and I'm going to use month. Okay, ampersand 1, comma. This looks good. Got to make sure I put my right spaces in there. Ampersand 2021. So look at that. I'm going to use this text field. I'm going to put it as a begin date, create a year out of it. And look at that. Now I've got a date. With that date, I can now use a lot of the built-in functionality. But before I do that, because I want to make sure I'm getting in good habits and getting in good practice, added custom. What the heck does that mean? Added custom column, month begin. That's better. Now I'll remember what the heck I did there. Not just added column. Next thing you know, I'm going to tell you to go write documentation for things. I know, crazy talk, right? Crazy talk. With this month begin date, I can add more columns and I can use the built-in functions. So here on the add columns, notice that I've got all of these from number, from date and time, from text. Well, we're going to use the from date because this is now a date. And I'm going to say, hey, give me the end of month from that one. So using that date field, it's going to create a column for me automatically that gives me my end of month. Look at that. Wow. Didn't even have to write that one. Did it for me all on its own. Let's look, just while we're here, let's look at some of the other ones that I can do. I can create a start of year, start of quarter, start of week, day of week. I could subtract days if I wanted to say, hey, how many days are in this month? Look at that. It's going to give me a column that's going to tell me how many days between that first and second value. All of this stuff is built in. All of this is stuff that a lot of people struggle with regularly. Okay. So far, so good. I've got something that's getting usable. Now I want to deal with the rest of my data. I've got this suppliers table. Got this additional suppliers table. Well, I don't want to work with two tables. I want to bring this together into a single one. Okay. So I'm going to start with this query. This is my main query. And I'm going to come up here. I'm going to go to the home ribbon again. Merge queries. Now look at that. I can merge queries together. I could append queries. This is really great if I've got stuff in multiple files, if I've got a 2020 and a 2021, etc. I can append those together. Real quick, one of the questions that came in was if I could recommend a good resource for M. Robert, I'll come back to that when we get to the M stuff. Okay. So and the second question that came in from Trevor is it possible to remove the month column after I create the month create date? So if you look at that, what it did from there is, yeah, in this case, I'm doing a date from text. So in this case, it is linked together. it is using that column to generate this column. So I wouldn't necessarily be able to remove that one. Okay. And same thing here. The end of month is linked to the month begin date column. Okay. So those are linked together. Doesn't mean I need to show it though. When I get this back into PBI, I can always hide this column. So I don't necessarily need to show it, but I do need it because it is a reference for this. Okay. All right. So let's see how to merge this together. Again, not a complex thing. Merge queries. I can merge this as it is, or I could merge it as a new query. So if I wanted to maintain and keep my source ones, I could. Here, I'm just going to merge it down. So I'm going to pick my suppliers. And this is a merge, so there has to be something that essentially joins these two things together. In this case, manufacturer, name. Note that that matched 424 of 436. There are some differences between these two. Here we have a situation where I've got essentially an SCD where some of the data has changed. Now, in our official class, we handled that as well. Obviously, I've got less than 10 minutes with you here today, so I can't show you everything. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to say, yeah, that 424, that's going to work for me. And it's now added as a new column here in my primary query. And if I expand this out, I can expand it out. I can leave the original column name if I want, or I could get rid of it. And I could select which ones I wanted. For example, we know we already have manufacturer. Do I need name? I could get rid of name if I wanted to. We're going to leave it just so you see it here. And I want to show you all what the issue was. We went from 52 rows to 436, but here it is right here. Drexel Corp changed their name. So these 12 rows are now back to a null. So there's still some more cleansing that would be needed in this case. Okay. Otherwise, I'm doing good. At this point, I'm ready to bring in my new column, or my new query, excuse me. And we're going to bring in an M script. Because I am not going to sit here and try and type this in 7 minutes, because that's just insane. Here is the script that I'm going to be importing. But let's take a look at this. This should give you all a bit of an ooh-ah. Those of you who like to write code, look at this. So what I've got here is I'm getting the local date time. I'm getting today's date. I'm getting a from year and a to year. So I'm going to pass these two variable values. I'm defining what month the fiscal year starts on, first day of the week, etc. And then I'm going to pass all of this. I know a lot of you would be like, just love to have a date table that looks like this, wouldn't you? Okay. So we're going to take this, I'm going to put it into my clipboard, so it's there. And I'm going to go ahead and I am going to create a new query. Okay, I'm going to create a new query. So new source, blank query. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to name this query date. I'm going to go to the advanced editor. There it is. There's my whole thing. Now, to answer the question that came up earlier, there are some great M resources literally on Microsoft's site. I cannot stress how great of a job Microsoft has done with their site, especially when it comes to the M programming language. A lot of this I learned myself from using their site directly. Okay. That is one of the best places to turn. I'm not sure if there's any books from the Microsoft folks. There probably are, but I personally used the Microsoft website to learn it. One of the best resources for this. Okay. Done. And look at that. Look at all the steps it created here. And I've got a great date table now. Pretty neat, huh? I don't get out much, so this is the kind of thing that excites me. You know, Supreet, that's a great question. I don't know. I wonder if anybody, does M stand for macro? I'm sure there was something that it stood for at one point. I'm just so used to calling it. It's kind of like R. You don't really think about R. You just know it is R, right? And Chandler. So if I wanted to use R or Python, I would actually use these scripts. There are separate buttons for R and Python scripts. The advanced editor is M. There are dedicated buttons. Yep, right there. This is the thing. Look, while we're here and I've got a couple minutes left, there's a lot on these different tabs. And there's a lot hidden under some of these drop downs. Okay. Thank you, Molly. Molly has informed us that M stands for mashup. So Supreet, there you go. Of course, when I think of mashup, I think more of what a DJ is doing. Now that I've got all this, now that I'm ready, I can go ahead and close and apply. Come on back in here. And here's my data ready to go. Now, of course, I'd still have to go through. I did not clean up like data types or things like that. So it did pick a lot of these up as summarized when it shouldn't. But let's take a look at our model view. So I've got my one join there, no issues there. I want to go ahead and I want to join my date. So I'm going to take my start of month, my start of month from my date table. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag it onto the month begin date. No, this is obviously not perfect. I want to just go ahead and I just want to create a date so we've got it so it's all joined. Yes, it created a many to many. Again, we're not doing this as in depth as we might in a real class. We're just looking at this here to do it quickly. Okay. I can now use this to start building out a visualization if I wanted. Put in a stacked column. I'm going to change my data type real quick on quantity here. Make sure it picks it up correctly. I want that as a whole number. Make sure that's summarized. Now, again, I could have done that in PQE. I could have done that in there, but I chose to do it here. Okay. I've got that. And from here, I'm just going to take month. And there we go. It's not sorted. It's not anything fancy right now. But here I am using this, and I've got all my other stuff, and I can put the supplier's name, and I'm ready to go. And look at that. I timed it with 44 seconds left to go. Not bad, right, Mike? Like, you wanted 10 minutes left, I gave you 10 minutes left.
Thanks, Patrick. That was good
Workout.
stuff.
Before I do, Sarah, so I wanted to go back to Sarah's question real quick, why I can't delete the month column. It is a reference, Sarah. Just because I'm on a different step, those steps reference each other. Let me go back to my home. Let me go back into transform data. So these steps feed off of each other, okay? So when I added this step in the code is referencing this explicit field, okay? If I get rid of this field, that step will break because there's no field. These are not independent steps. This is a flow. So it's got to be in there. Each one of these builds, like if I just deleted a random step here, I'm going to break all the rest of these steps. So both of these, the month begin and the end month, reference explicit columns. Okay, so I can't get rid of them because I'm referencing an actual column. Okay. All right, and with that, Mike, I can give it back to you.
Thanks, Patrick. But you can't hide the column. So that's kind of, I think, the important message is while you can't delete it, you can still take it out so your users aren't trying to put it in visualizations inappropriately.
Absolutely.
Please put any additional questions that you have. We'll get back to those, put those in the question pane. We'll get back to those in just a couple of minutes. So if you like what you saw today, you can tell Power Query is very powerful. there's also a lot of, the waters get pretty deep there, as our founder, John Peterson, likes to say. So it's helpful to have an expert like Patrick or one of our other experts helping you out with that stuff. And as a incentive, we're offering $100 off Power Query training. We're offering a course on Power Query Editor, April 13th, May 25th, and June 29th. You can get to that via the Senturus website and use the coupon code Power Query. So real quickly about Senturus, again, before we get to the events and Q&A, we are the authority in business intelligence, concentrating our expertise solely on business intelligence with a depth of knowledge across the entire BI stack. And our clients know us for providing clarity from the chaos of complex business requirements, disparate and ever-changing data sources, and constantly moving business and regulatory targets. We've made a name for ourselves based on our strength at bridging the gap between IT and business users. We deliver solutions that give you access to reliable, analysis-ready data across your organization, enabling you to quickly and easily get answers at the point of impact in the form of the decisions you make and the actions you take. Our consultants are leading experts in the field of analytics with years of pragmatic real-world expertise and experience advancing the state of the art. We're so confident in our team and our methodology that we back our projects with a 100% money-back guarantee that is unique in the industry. And we've been doing this for a while, over 2 decades now, focused exclusively on business intelligence, working across the spectrum from the Fortune 500 down to the mid-market, solving business problems across virtually every vertical industry and most functional areas, including the Office of Finance, Sales and Marketing, Manufacturing, Operations, HR, and IT. Our team is both large enough to meet all of your business analytics needs, yet small enough to provide personalized attention. For more resources such as this, visit the Senturus website, senturus.com/senturus-resources. And again, make sure you bookmark that. It has this webinar, our past webinars, there's hundreds of them, and everything up to it, including our fabulous up-to-the-minute, easily consumable blog. Upcoming events, we are hosting 6 ways to publish and share Tableau dashboards. That's up on the site. You can register for that at under the events. and that will be a couple Thursdays from now, or really about a month from now. We're also doing, Patrick will be back on May 13th, discussing Power BI paginated reports. And there's another one coming at the end of April where we're going to have a Cognos product manager reviewing the new features of the anxiously awaited Cognos 11.2. So look for that on our site. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our fabulous training. I guess I did already mention our training, but we offer complete BI training across the 3 major platforms we support: Power BI, additionally Tableau, and Cognos, across all the key different modalities or ways of learning, from tailored group sessions to mentoring to instructor-led online courses to self-paced e-learning. We're great for organizations that are running multiple platforms or those perhaps moving from one to the other, and we can provide training in those different modes and mix and match those to suit the needs of your particular user community. There are tons of additional resources available on our website, and we've been committed to sharing our BI expertise for over a decade. One last slide here before we get to the Q&A. On this topic, there was a webinar that we presented. In fact, I presented it a few months ago, 4 ways to model data in Power BI, and you can find it at that link. All right, with that, we'll come back to the Q&A and cover any remaining questions. Patrick, did you see any ones in there you wanted to cover?
I think I got everything. So I got Chandler's question. Chandler, you're good on that. There was one, let me scroll down here. So what is the best way to leverage the data just cleaned by PBE and other tools? Excellent question. I don't know if I really have a good answer for that. Let me think that one through for a second. I can't necessarily dump this out. I'm just trying to think. I could save this as a script, but otherwise, if I do it from, make sure I don't close the wrong thing here. I mean, I could export from here. I could export my report or my data, but otherwise, this is for this environment, if you will. So, but I think that's the only question that I didn't get a chance to address today.
Yeah, it looks that way. Someone's asking how much more can M do that you can't do from the ribbon.
Yeah. Let me see. Let me open this on another window. Let me do a quick. I want to bring up a website real quick. Bring up that Microsoft site I was talking about earlier. So here's the Power Query specification. Whoo boy, there's a lot. It's a full programming language with a lot going on, with parameters, with all sorts of stuff. So yeah, and I'll go ahead and let me throw this out there real quick into the chat window.
So the short answer is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful language. Takes a little bit to get used to, but if you've done a little bit of programming, it also follows a lot of that similar structure.
Exactly. It exactly. But here, somebody asked about the functions list. Here's the functions list. Let me get this on the screen there. How's that for a few functions for you? Okay. Look at that. I can't even fit it on my screen. So accessing data, binary, right there. So Kevin, you were asking, how does one know all these? I don't know. Ask me in about 5 years. I'll tell you how many of them I know. Okay. But yeah, so you can see that there is a lot more in here than what I can do. And remember, my goal here is to write scripts. My goal isn't just to do a single line as I would on the line. I'm writing scripts in here, and that's a lot.
These are really, and to the question earlier about using it in other tools, this is really effectively creating a view, a metadata layer that's unique to Microsoft. Now you can get to Power Query Editor from directly from something like Excel
Yeah.
and create data sets that way, and it's exactly the same thing. In fact, now in Visual Studio, if you're creating, if you're connecting to data sources there, you can use it'll pull up Power Query Editor from right in there. So it's consistent across the stack, but it's not really something that's easily leverageable by a Cognos or a Tableau. It's proprietary to the Microsoft tools.
Indira, thank you very much. Indira put a link in here into the window. Let's take a look at that link. How I can export from PQE. So it looks like this is a question that somebody else also asked. So it looks like run the same. Yep, exactly what you just said. Doing it in Excel, basically. So exactly what you just referenced, Mike. So there you go. Same thing. Keeping it within the stack, using Excel to dump it out to something else. So thank you for that, Indira. Much appreciated. And just like I said, I've been sitting here on my screen. You guys have been seeing me while Mike's been talking. Yeah, I think this is enough functions to keep you all busy. Okay, Kevin, I think this will keep you for a while.
And if you want the M code that was used to create that date table, go ahead and sign up for the class. And
thank you for saying what
part of the class materials.
Exactly. I'm happy to share that in class. Hey, I can't give the whole cow away for free, right?
Exactly. Great. Well, I think I'm not seeing any new questions pop up there. And we're at the top of the hour, so we can probably advance to the last slide here. First of all, thank you to our presenter, Patrick. Always a pleasure. Thank you to you, our audience, for taking some time out of your day to join us on our Knowledge Series event here. If we can be of any assistance to you on anything business intelligence related, you can reach us at info@senturus.com, or if you still pick up a phone, we've got a 888 number there, and we'd love to hear from you. So we hopefully have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you on one of our future Knowledge Series events. Thanks everyone for your time. Have a great rest of your day. Bye now.